So, here we are. It's Bagtalk Sports, and I'm going to be previewing the upcoming 2018 Michigan Wolverines. We'll also do like an overall college football just prediction show. I'll just be kind of giving my thoughts on how I see the landscape turning out. Who are the dark horses? Maybe some teams coming out of nowhere. Heisman candidates. Coaches that I could see being gone. I think coaches that's on the rise. Teams that's on the rise. Teams that's going to maybe be falling off. Might be surprised with some of the teams that I have to say. We'll see. But I think this coming college football season is going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be a transitional year. Obviously, you know, Alabama, they've been the big dogs on the block. They've been the pit bull. They've been the one that everybody's gunning for. I mean, they won 5 of the last 9 national championships. You know, Nick Saban is doing a tremendous job coaching. I mean, he's just flowing in NFL talent. He's reloading. And this year, I mean, it's scary. I mean, even though it's a young team, it's a scary team. So we're going to see how that goes. You know, as far as the Michigan Wolverines are concerned, it's just, I have an idea of how good they can be. I think they can be a great team this year. It's just all about, can they actually do it? Will they execute? Because everything is there for them this year. If you go back to last year, 2017 season, it started off a little promising. I mean, it was a shaky game against Florida, but we kind of seen that Florida really wasn't a good team anyway. So that really wasn't an impressive win as we moved on into the season, but we did think so at the time. We saw offensive line problems last year. We saw the confusion on offense. We saw that ineptitude. Especially they could not pass protect. Saw what happened to Wilton Spate in the Purdue game. He was hurt his neck pretty bad. He was out for the season. Brought in John O'Korn, who's just not a Big Ten level quarterback. And I'm not disparaging John O'Korn. It's just he's serviceable, but not at that level. Okay, I think that's where the mistake was made. And of course, Brandon Peters, who was a redshirt freshman at that time, he was just not ready mentally and from an emotional standpoint to take the reins, and that's why he came into the season as 3rd on the depth chart. Okay, but he eventually had an opportunity to play. He played well at times, other times not so well. He ended up getting injured as well. Conversely, you throw John O'Korn back into the mix, and then we had the results. From the defense last year, talented bunch. They were a little younger. Great play out the corners. Lavert Hill and David Long had outstanding years. So did Chase Winovich and Rashawn Gary. But you kind of saw in the Penn State game, as well late in Ohio State game, where their weaknesses are. If you spread this Michigan defense out, if you put them in space, a lot of the linebackers that we have and the safeties, they had a very difficult time with pass coverages in space. Okay, if you're lining up, and we saw that because when we played Wisconsin, kind of a pro style, just run right at your team, we kind of held our own. We just didn't have enough offense to beat Wisconsin. And the same for the Michigan State game. But when you saw when we played Penn State with Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley and the tight end and the wide receivers, they spread us out. They played very high, quick pace. They were throwing the ball downfield, a lot of traps, misdirections. You know, the direct snaps, Saquon Barkley. They were putting Saquon Barkley out in the flank. We didn't have the linebackers. We didn't have the speed to put them in coverage. And it was the results. I mean, we just got totally destroyed at Penn State. Now, I knew we weren't going to win that game because of what we did to them the year before. They were at home. It was a whiteout. It was at night. It was on the road. But I was just kind of surprised of how quickly things just got out of hand from the defensive standpoint. We just had no answers for anything they were doing. But we see, I mean, Penn State had a tremendous offense. They had a tremendous offensive coordinator, Joe Moorhead. We've seen that he moved on to bigger and better things. Now he's the coach of Mississippi State, a very talented team. So he may do some great things down there. But they still have an outstanding coach in James Franklin. They still have Trace McSorley. a decent defense. We'll see how much they've improved. Even though they've lost Saquon Barkley, they've lost some pieces on offense. They're still going to be a very, very potent offense. So don't think just because Saquon Barkley is there, everything's just going to be easy peasy, because it's not. We'll get to that shortly. Okay, so defensively, we had our struggles. So I think both things have been addressed in the offseason. I think Don Brown has obviously watched that Penn State game, the Ohio State game. Once Haskins came in and he was able to attack downfield, we seen that we couldn't cover him. And even when Hornibrook was forced to throw, time after time on third down, we could not get off the field. We could not, from the safety and a lot of the nickel spots, a lot of the linebacker spots, we just could not have the proper coverages, and we couldn't get off the field, and that's why we had the results that we had. The offense, I mean, it's obvious it was horrible. It was anemic. It was a disgusting display of football. I mean, only 9 touchdown passes for the entire year. I mean, some teams get 9 touchdown passes in 2 games, and we played 13 games, only 9 touchdown passes. Trouble in the red zone. I mean, the special teams was actually pretty good. We had a great kicking game, but that was about it. I mean, no pass protection, none from the running back. The offensive line play was horrible. The receivers often look confused. No proper running routes, a lot of drop passes, inept quarterback play. So we were playing high-level teams. We just didn't have a chance. Defense can only do so much. Okay. Now, just moving on, to the offseason, obviously some changes were made. They had to get rid of Tim Drevno, the offensive coordinator. Even though that was Harbaugh's guy, he had been with Harbaugh, I think, ever since he was coach at San Diego. I mean, as poorly as they played, you just could not bring him back. And unfortunately, Harbaugh could not. He had to let him go. Pep Hamilton somehow survived. I don't know how, but he did. So he's still around. But his role has changed. We brought in some new coaches. Ed Warner is outstanding offensive line coach. So the hope is that he has helped this offensive line front in moving people off the ball and also in pass protection. So we'll see as we go on through this season. They're going to get an early test at Notre Dame for sure against Notre Dame's front seven. There's no question about that. Now, with a lot of coaching changes, we still don't know who the offensive coordinator is, so we're going to have to wait and see. But from an offensive standpoint, obviously the biggest story of the offseason, we're able to get Shea Patterson, the transfer quarterback from Ole Miss. He was the #1 quarterback 2 years ago, right behind Brandon Peters, and we see this a huge disparity in talent. Shea Patterson, very mobile, very confident, big arm, accuracy issues at times, but I think he's with better coaching, more polished, better atmosphere, better surroundings. I think he can clean some of that stuff up and play more efficient this year. So there's a lot of promise with that. But we'll wait and see. I have my own thoughts about Shea, but we'll get to that later. So there's been a huge improvement in the quarterback situation. Obviously, Dylan McCaffrey, big five-star recruit out of Colorado, coming as a redshirt freshman. Coaches have great things to say about him. I have never seen him play, so I can only go by what they said. Joe Milton, another great recruit out of Florida. So I think we've seen the last of Brandon Peters. I just think, based on what I seen in the South Carolina game, he looked very disengaged, not spirited at all. He showed no leadership ability. He wasn't holding any players accountable, and he was holding his head down and often looked defeated himself. And that's not good coming from your quarterback, your quote-unquote floor general. That's the guy you're supposed to be setting the example and kind of like, the guy that you look to turn things around, and he just looked totally out of place. And I just think, he just needs to change. He needs to change the atmosphere. And, people that keep saying it's a quarterback battle, I'm just not buying it. I don't even think he's third on the depth chart. I mean, he was third on the depth chart going into last year. And that was after him being a redshirt freshman. So he had all of 2016 to learn the offense. He was an early signee, so he signed in January of 2016. So he had all of 2016. 2017, you come in and you're still behind John O'Corn. So if you can't even beat out John O'Corn when you had a whole year of being in the program, what makes you think he's going to beat out guys like, Milton and McCaffrey, who was already talented? So I think, I see him transferring at the end of the season. I just don't see him playing. It just doesn't make any sense to put him back out there. I mean, I think they're going to see what McCaffrey can do. If something happens to Shea Patterson, I just don't think we'll ever see Brandon Jacobs on the field playing quarterback. I mean, I guess it's possible, but if something crazy happens, I just don't see it. And I see him transferring. Okay, so just getting into the season. Obviously, last year was a disappointment. A lot of people were very critical of Jim Harbaugh and how he handled things, the offense in particular. To me, the things that stood out to me was just there was no direction, no leadership on the offensive side of the ball. Who's really in control? And I think this year he's addressed that. I think you had too many cooks in the kitchen last year, too many different philosophies, very complicated, and it was just confusion. And that's why you've seen the results that you saw. Now, as far as going into the season, I think that we have a great defense. Chase Winovich decided to come back and play. We got Rashawn Gary, two great NFL caliber corners. Maybe both can be drafted in the first round, David Long and Lavert Hill. I mean, obviously the front seven, you got guys like Devin Bush, who could potentially be an All-American. I mean, they're loaded up front. To me, the question is, what about the free safeties? Are they going to stick with Cannell? Are they going to go with the young guy Hudson, who has a lot of speed and ability, maybe not experience? But I think eventually you're going to have to play him. You have to be able to cover. I mean, you have to be able. You can't let the defense take the top off. Okay, and you need a guy with speed at that free safety position. Okay, I mean the strong safety. I mean Josh Metellus, he struggled at times, especially against scrambling quarterbacks. So hopefully we can see something better out of him. So I think those are the issues on defense: is the free safety and the safety position. We can somewhat just be competent and above average. I think we'll be fine, but we'll see. Special teams, I think it was average at best last year. Gave up a lot of yardage, a lot of field position, and kickoff returns as well as punt returns. And we did not return a favor. We did not get a lot of production from the kickoff and punt return game. I think, Ambry Thomas obviously is going to have more of an impact this year. So we're hoping that he can kind of take hold of that situation, that position, and kind of do some things and make plays. I think that'll make the situation easier if we just got a clear-cut guy in our kickoff and punt return packages. And I think it's going to be Ambry Thomas. Okay. Now, offensively, I mean, I think, from the skill positions standpoint, I mean, tight ends, you got guys like Eubanks and Zach Gentry. I mean, you got wide receivers, you got guys like Nico Collins, Oliver Martin, Grant Perry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Tariq Black. So I think we have the talent out on the perimeter in the wide receiver position. If anybody's seen Donovan Peoples-Jones play in high school at Cass Tech, this is a special elite athlete. He has all the abilities and tools to be a top 10 pick coming out of college into the pros. He has it all. It's just a matter of just fine-tuning his game. And I believe he's done that. And I think he's going to have a breakout season, as well as Tariq Black. They're going to be running this kind of like run-pass option, the RPO, which has become popular even at the pro level. See a lot of colleges like Oklahoma doing it more. They were very successful last year with Baker Mayfield, so maybe this is perhaps something that can take place with the Michigan Wolverines with Shea Patterson at the helm, with his playmaking ability, his scrambling ability, his ability to run. We have two great talented running backs, Chris Evans, Karan Higdon. You know, they didn't rush for 1,000 yards last year, but I still think they'll be very productive. I think it just comes down to the offensive line play. I mean, I think we're solid in the middle with Ruiz and Brendanson. It's just a matter of the bookends, whether it's John Runyon or it's the freshman, I can't remember his name right offhand. If we can get any type of high-level production from the left tackle position, from the running backs and pass protection, we can give Shea Patterson time to make those big throws downfield. We can push people off the ball and average 4 or 5 yards a carry. It's going to be much easier to make plays downfield. Okay, and we got to clean up the red zone play. So I think those are the main issues on offense. I think it's the offensive line. I think it's our issue defense. I think it's the safety positions, and then we need to have more explosiveness, explosive plays, special teams, and better coverage. Now, I think as far as the schedule goes and how things are going to play out, I think obviously the critical game is right off the bat in South Bend at night on national TV. College game day is going to be there. They have Notre Dame's quarterback in Wimbush. Very erratic. He can make plays. He's kind of like got that Russell Westbrook vibe. I mean, he can make 4 or 5 mistakes in a row, but then he can just do something spectacular. Like, how did he do that? So I think that's what we'll get from Notre Dame. So I think if we can somehow get to him, if we can turn him over, we're productive offensively and not turn the ball over, I think Michigan can beat Notre Dame. It's just a matter of having our composure, handling our business, not giving Wimbush any confidence. I think if we can get to him early, rattle him early, I think we'll be fine. But we're at Notre Dame. I mean, crazy things can happen. I mean, that's a hard place to play, especially at night. Okay. But even with all that being said, I think with the coaching improvements, I think Michigan, they're motivated this year. I think they will step out and handle their business. The next big game is Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska's better, but it's still going to be an interesting game. I still think we have to play at an optimum level to win that. I think the Big Ten is the hardest conference in all of college football. I mean, you may have probably 7, possibly 8 teams that can make a bowl game. I mean, you got Wisconsin, Nebraska, Purdue, Northwestern, Iowa, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State. That's 9 teams. I think all 9 of those teams are going to be bowl teams. And they're going to get better, you know. So it's going to be very interesting. The Big Ten is not going to be easy. You know, I don't think anybody's going to go through the Big Ten unscathed, just run the table. So it's going to be losses, maybe 2 losses, but I think for Michigan, definitely just having 1 loss, it's going to bode well for them, especially getting out of the Eastern Division. Now, if they were in the West, I'd be very confident. Like, okay, they're going to the Big Ten championship game. But since they're playing in the East, you got Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State, 2 top 10 teams. I mean, all 3 potential top 10 teams ahead of you. 2 of those games on the road. So this is how it plays out. I mean, I think the month of October is going to be the hardest month for the whole season. You're looking at Nebraska, then you got at Michigan State. You got to play Wisconsin at home, and then you got Penn State at home. Okay, all those games right back to back. So it's Nebraska at home, Wisconsin at home, at Michigan State, and then you got Penn State at home. So the good thing is 3 of those games are in Ann Arbor. Okay, but you got the one at Michigan State. Michigan State is going to be a very good team this year, very physical. I like their quarterback in Lewerke. I like their running back, L.J. Scott. It's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. It's going to be at night. They're going to be very motivated. It's going to be a rabid crowd. And rivalry games at Spartan Stadium, anything can happen. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's just going to come down, will Shea Patterson make enough plays to win the game? Can they pass protect him? And can he come up with enough big plays? Can he will us through all that And I think this is the game we're going to see what he's made of. Now, if he's the real deal, I think he'll make the necessary plays and we'll win this game. Do I think Michigan will go undefeated? Of course not. I mean, I've even got about Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska, I think Penn State's in November. So actually it's Nebraska, Wisconsin, Nebraska at home, at Northwestern, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and then Penn State. All those can be top 25 teams. 5 weeks in a row. I think with a bye week in between. So I think somewhere in there, I think we'll lose one game. But the two that we can't lose, I don't think we can lose that Penn State game. And I don't think we can lose to Michigan State. We have to win those games just because they're on our side of the division. Now we got the other bookend game, the big rivalry game at Ohio State in Columbus. As I said before in the preview, we have not won in Columbus since the year 2000 when Drew Henson was the quarterback. Bill Clinton was still president at that time. I think we had that crazy election going on with the hanging chads and all that. That just shows you how long ago it was. So I mean, when Ohio State, I know this Urban Meyer situation still has not resolved itself. Will he remain as coach? I think it's irrelevant as far as the game. Whether he's there or not, whether he's still the coach, whether he gets a suspension, whether he's fired, they still have a very, very talented team on both sides of the ball. A lot of skill, a lot of depth, okay? A lot of guys who can make plays. And regardless of what happens to them in that season, this is a huge rivalry game, maybe the biggest in all of college football. So they're going to be highly motivated for that game, especially if Coach Myers is not there. That might be that one last hurrah rallying cry if they have a tough season. And they're talented, and they're going to be motivated and up for that game. So I think the Wolverines, they're definitely going to have to be up to this challenge because I think we've lost to them 6 times in a row, and there's a reason why we've been losing recruits to Ohio State. It's because its perception is that we're just not on Ohio State's level. So I think Michigan has to come in, take advantage of the Ohio State kind of being off their square a little bit this year, having a little dysfunction, and they got to handle their business. They have to win this game convincingly going away. It can change the perception. It can change recruiting. It can just change the overall vibe and feel of the program. A lot of momentum, possibly winning the Big Ten East, possibly going to Indianapolis, winning the Big Ten, going to the college football playoffs. Because I feel this way, and I said this, that it's no way with the way the Big Ten is, as tough as the conference is, and especially what happened last year, them picking Alabama over Ohio State, that they're going to lead the Big Ten out of the college football playoff 2 years in a row. I just don't see it happen. It's no way it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. Whoever's the Big Ten champion, unless it's somebody like a Northwestern with 3 or 4 losses or a 2-loss Wisconsin team. But if it's somebody out of the East, well, if it's Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, and they only got maybe 1 loss, it's no way that they're leaving them out of the playoff. So if Michigan beats Michigan State, if we beat Penn State, if we beat Ohio State, and we win the Big Ten, that committee, they're going to put Michigan into the playoff. And if Shea Patterson plays well at Ohio State, gets a couple touchdowns, I think he'll be invited to New York, for the Heisman Trophy. Whether he'll win the Heisman, I don't know. We have to see how other people play, but the opportunity, everything is there for this team. It's just a matter of can they execute? Can they pass protect? Can the running backs pass protect? Can they make big plays? Can we keep the turnovers down? Can our wide receivers make big plays? Will they run proper routes? Will they grasp the offense quickly? We can't be in week 4, week 5, and the offense is still not running because, I think by it being more simplified with the RPO, the run pass option, and calls being in from the sideline, I think with the talent, they'll just be allowed to just play and not do so much thinking and route running. I think this is great for a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones. He can just go out there and just catch the ball and just do his thing. And I think he's going to have a huge season this year. And I like the running backs, Evans and Higdon. I like Shea Patterson. I've seen a lot of his film at Ole Miss. I think now that he has a team, you know, he has some talent all over the field. I think they can do some great things on offense. I think the defense is set. We'll see what happens with the safety positions. Special teams, I think, will get better. But things have to happen too. I mean, it's going to be some games where the ball got to bounce your way, maybe some bad calls, injuries. We don't know. I mean, it's hard to go undefeated in college football. You know, that at Northwestern game is going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be an interesting stretch. I mean, Wisconsin, there's no pushover either. That's going to be a heck of a game. So I think if the injuries are at a minimum and everybody is just do what they're supposed to do, what they're projected to do, I think it's all there for us to get to the college football playoff. You know, especially with now the turmoil that's going on in Ohio State. We don't know how it's going to play out. But even though they're a good team, we're good enough to go down there and beat them. And I just feel like it's time. I mean, we haven't won there in almost 20 years. They've beaten us 6 years straight. It's time for the tide to turn. Things to start going our way. We start flipping recruits, guys that are thinking Ohio State and Michigan. And that's the way it used to be. There was a time when we were getting the guys that were on the fence. Like Desmond Howard coming out of Cleveland, thinking, should he go Ohio State or Michigan? And he chose Michigan. Charles Woodson coming out of Ohio, thinking, which way should he go? He chose Michigan. We used to swing the guys. Now it's swinging the other way. You know, they took Mike Weber away from us. You know, and countless other players that were here in Detroit, homegrown, great, talented, and then they ended up going down to Columbus and playing. It's not a good look for us. Or they're going to Notre Dame, or they're going to Michigan State. It's time for us to beat these teams, change the perception. So the recruiting thing, which is really the lifeblood of a program, to kind of go in our favor. So stay tuned for more Bagtalk. I'm going to be previewing a lot of other teams: Ohio State, Michigan State, Georgia, Alabama, USC, Washington, all the kind of main teams. I'll be doing previews. Theirs are going to be a lot shorter, but since I'm a Michigan fan, I have to kind of go in more. I'm more familiar with the team and what their rosters are. Obviously, Bagtalk podcast is various channels. I mean, this is just the sports section, but we also discuss financial literacy. We're going to be interviewing entrepreneurs. We're going to be talking about credit repair and real estate strategies and investment strategies and business structure and branding, marketing, sales, advertising, business funding, as well as sports too. So, I mean, people say, well, why are you going to have a sports show and then a show about business? Well, I mean, I think it kind of goes hand in hand. They're both competitive. They both take a lot of motivation, a lot of teamwork, a lot of strategy. So they kind of blend with each other, and plus I'm a big, college football fan. I'm a big fan of the NBA. The NFL, it's like, I just can't rock with the NFL. If you want to go somewhere, hear NFL talk, I mean, it's just not over here. I mean, I just think with everything that's going on and how they're treating the players, I just think it's just something that that needs to be addressed before we, just feed into it. I just feel like, there's just more important things. But that's a whole nother show. Okay, so stay tuned. Subscribe to the new Bagtalk podcast. You can find me on YouTube. Just follow me on Instagram, Mr. 313 Real Estate. Check out the show. Give me your feedback. Share it with people. Subscribe. And we can just get this interaction going. So, next week, all my Michigan State fans, I'll be previewing Michigan State, even though I'm a Michigan fan. I'm going to be totally objective. I mean, I have no dog in the fight. I'm just going to tell you my thoughts of where your team is going to be. Obviously, I've gave away something. But I mean, just because I said I think Michigan's going to win a Big Ten doesn't mean it can happen. Michigan State can very easily win it. It's all there for them as well. So we'll talk about that more in detail about what their opportunities and prospects are. Okay, so I'll kind of like give a fair shot and let everybody talk about their team, and we'll go from there. All right, so everybody stay tuned to the next podcast. Stay tuned for our first couple of interviews on the Bagtalk business part, and we'll just go from there. But I'm really excited about this new venture that we're doing. I think we're gonna have some great content for you guys. So stay tuned.